Welcome to Paired Voting System. In this video we will go through the steps to set up a public election, on a small scale, but in enough detail to show the steps required to set up a real election. The purpose of an election is to clearly maximize and respond to the wishes and needs of the voters. This election uses paired voting system, also known as PVS. It uses choice pairings with RNKs provided by voters. These RNKs are analyzed and used to establish rankings of all candidates. The election is set up by an editor and starts with a login. Creating and editing. Editor is permitted while in the edit window to create, edit, duplicate, delete, and open elections. He also, as part of the editing process, enters choices and voters. Insert the name of the election in the name field. Insert an access code if you require one. This is only used for filtering. If you do not provide an access code, one will be provided by the system. Adjust the dates as required. The system provides default dates, however, the editor may open or close an election at the click of a button as required. Insert notes on the purpose of the election and other relevant information. Fill in all the boxes with respect to country, state, and city. These location fields have no impact on the performance of the program. RNK weights are for weighted voting. Weighted voting is only allowed to be used in competitions, proportional and shareholder voting. This box will be filled in by the program as required. In this setup we set results to private as false and voting to private as false. This results in a public election with publicly accessible voting and publicly accessible results. All logged-in users have access to public areas of an election. Editor hits the Save button to create the election in the cloud. Once this is done, he can advance to the next step to address choices and voters and event if applicable. Choices. Choices can be set up individually and modified to suit. Or a CSV file can be set up and imported into the program by following the prompts. This example election uses an imported choices file which include a name, notes, and a party description. Voters. No voters need to be set up by the editor because this is a public election. As such, any signed-in user may RNK candidates while in the vote window. A public election is not a good idea when tight control needs to be exercised on the voters, whereas a private election maintains this control but is beyond the scope of this example. Duplicates. Duplicates are easily created from whatever election is selected in the edit window. The editor may modify the choices for either copy. Either or both copies may be elevated into the vote window. Duplicate elections carry identical setup values, and these can be modified by the editor. Open election. After the editor is satisfied the editing is complete, he can elevate the election to the vote window, or he can wait for the election to elevate itself once the opening date and time has been reached. Voting. The vote window is where all RNK values are entered by the users. A user would log in using the login window, verify his email address, accept the terms and conditions. Then he would click on the Elections button to access the Elections window. Once the Elections window is active, he would select the Public Vote window and follow the prompts. The Public Vote button will generate a list of public elections. If none exist, none will be shown. Vote saving. In this example, 4 voters entered RNKs. We can refer to them as Voter 1, Voter 2, Voter 3, and Voter 4. Voter 1 in this case is the editor and his display will show additional buttons for delete, close and results. A regular user will only see the vote button on this screen. The following sequence shows a progression of RNKs by all 4 voters. Note the real-time results. When a voter presses the Save button, his RNKs are pushed online and processed in the cloud. Cloud functions compare his latest RNKs with prior RNKs, if they exist, and process a difference which is applied as additive to the choice files stored online. There is no further need to perform added calculations with respect to a specific voter once his RNKs are processed. The recalculated results are returned to the voter screen with a delay of around 10 seconds. In high-volume voting situations, overflow RNKs are stored in the cloud as vote shards and finalized later. Closing elections. Once an editor is satisfied that all voting is complete, and if it is the accepted protocol within the context of the election, he can close the election, thus allowing full access to the results windows. In any event, the election will close automatically once it reaches its design closing time. Results. When setting up selection processes, public results are accessible to all who have logged into the system using the required credential checks. Private results are only accessible to the editor or a registered voter of that election. PVS Paired Voting System Analysis. Ford was listed first candidate in the list of candidates, and when the election results were finalized, he ended up with a number 1 rank. Karahalios came in second and Horvath was a close third. Ford tied Karahalios in the number of wins, 3, and the number of ties, 2. However, Karahalios had 13 fours registered in his favor as opposed to 14 fours registered in Ford's favor. And so that swung the election in Ford's favor to earn Ford the number 1 rank. In a one-on-one choice pair result, Ford and Karahalios are tied at 2 fours each. This created a choice ratio of 50%. This was an interesting result, but not determinative to the final outcome.
This concludes our presentation. I hope that you enjoyed it.